President's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, continues to dominate the headlines after the raid last week on his offices. A judge has not made a final decision on what will happen with the seized evidence. Cohen faces a criminal investigation of his personal business dealings and possible campaign finance violations. His lawyers asked that a special appointee review the material taken. The judge said she would consider the idea, but made no decision. Aaron Blake is a Washington Post senior political reporter, and he joins me now. So, Aaron, boy, what a frenzy outside that courtroom today. So the president, we know, has his own legal team. They've gotten involved, and you wrote that the White House is laughably distancing Trump from Michael Cohen. What do you mean by that?
Well, there was a statement put out by Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders on Monday suggesting that Michael Cohen was basically one of many lawyers that the president has. There was a spokesman, Hogan Gidley, who went on CNN later in the day and made a similar comment. This very much fits with the White House's MO when it comes to characters that are close to the president, may have even worked for the president, who become problematic in some way. They downplay their roles in the president's campaign or his White House. They suggest that they were not all that significant to his presidency or to his campaign. And I think that it seems that's what's happening now with Michael Cohen to some degree. They're basically saying that the president had many lawyers while ignoring the fact that this is a lawyer that the president has been very close to. Michael Cohen is very loyal to the president. And in fact, the term lawyer doesn't accurately describe everything that Michael Cohen provides to the president. In fact, arguably, he's not even much of a lawyer. He's more of a fixer, somebody who goes around and kind of cleans up problems for the president, which is certainly what he seemed to be doing, at least in the case of Stormy Daniels.
Well, you make the point that he's not just a lawyer. He helps other people out. We learned that Sean Hannity was named as Cohen's third client. I want to play what he had to say about this last night.
Michael Cohen never represented me in any legal matter. I never retained his services. I never received an invoice. I never paid Michael Cohen for legal fees. I did have occasional brief conversations with Michael Cohen. He's a great attorney, about legal questions I had, or I was looking for input and perspective. My discussions with Michael Cohen never rose to any level that I needed to tell anyone that I was asking him questions. And to be absolutely clear, they never involved any matter, sorry to disappoint so many, matter between me or third party, a third group at all. And my questions exclusively almost focused on real estate.
So Hannity, we know, on his show has attacked the Mueller investigation and defended Cohen without ever mentioning their relationship at this point. Does this raise questions for you at this point, Aaron? And does Sean Hannity have any concern as far as this investigation goes?
Well, we don't know exactly what that might be. All that is speculation at this point. I will say it's a little bit difficult to understand if Michael Cohen hadn't in fact been really acting as any kind of a lawyer for Sean Hannity, as Hannity seems to be saying. Why did Michael Cohen's lawyer list him as one of his clients in court? Why did Michael Cohen's lawyer want to withhold the identity of Sean Hannity in court? That seems to be an odd move to make if, in fact, this relationship was so informal, if it wasn't actually an attorney-client relationship. And by the way, I would add the legal definition for an attorney-client relationship is pretty easy to meet. And so, the fact that Sean Hannity was named in court by Michael Cohen's lawyer means that there was an understanding of some sort and that there was some kind of relationship. Beyond that, exactly what kind of matters Michael Cohen may have helped Sean Hannity with, it's really all speculation at this point.
All right, Aaron, I want to switch gears for a second and ask you about the president who chose to put the brakes on these new Russia sanctions for their support of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. We know that Ambassador Nikki Haley said they were in the works, and now we're hearing there's a dispute over that. What really changed here?
Well, we don't know, but it's a really good question because this was something that Nikki Haley went on the Sunday shows, and just more than 24 hours later, the White House reversed course on. Nikki Haley, according to the Washington Post's reporting, has a tendency to run by the things that she's going to say with President Trump. The things she said were very specific. You have a hard time believing she would have made that kind of announcement unless she was Sure, this was something that was sanctioned by the White House, and yet the White House is not following through on what she said it was going to do. You have to wonder, I think, a little bit if this is maybe a reaction to some pressure that the Kremlin has been applying here, maybe even some response to, there was a Washington Post report on Sunday night, in fact, that suggested that the president had basically been kind of overridden by his advisors and pushed aside when it comes to some of these decisions. So maybe the president was simply asserting his authority here. Certainly he's proven that he's not opposed to changing things up, to reversing course, to changing his mind about certain things. What's really important here, I think, is whether or not they follow through. And if they don't, that's going to be a very significant decision to go back on something that you've already basically announced.
And we know that the president said he wants a meeting with Vladimir Putin. Where do you think, Aaron, that potential meeting stands at this point? Will you see it happening?
It's possible. I think politically speaking, it'll be difficult, if only because a lot of Republicans won't necessarily like that idea. The Washington Post ABC News poll out today showed that the American people are actually generally in favor of the idea. Of course, the people tend to be okay with the idea of diplomacy. They think that's a good idea. But I think especially the idea of bringing Vladimir Putin to the United States for some kind of negotiations, especially at such a difficult time as we're in right now with Syria, with election interference, with the Mueller investigation. I think that would just cast a whole shadow on this entire thing that I'm not sure even those who are advising the president right now would like to see.
Before you go, Aaron, I want to ask you about this talk about Congressman Charlie Dent. He announced today that he will be leaving Congress in a matter of weeks instead of sort of waiting it out until we knew that he wasn't going to seek re-election, but he's not going to stay till November. Why the sudden change in plans?
I think that it's a reflection of the fact that a lot of these Republicans just don't think being in Congress is very fun. They don't think it's very productive. I think in this case, Charlie Dent had already announced his retirement, certainly, appeared to be perhaps waiting until he got to a point where they wouldn't have to have a special election to replace him in Congress before the next November election. That would be a very difficult seat for Republicans to hold in a special election, potentially would be seen as a blow to Republicans' hopes. And I'm sure that Charlie Dent probably wanted to avoid being the guy who provided that. You know, this is the story we've seen over and over again. Being in Congress wasn't much fun before. It's even less fun for a moderate like Charlie Dent when President Trump is in the White House doing the things that he's doing. And so this is, I think, as much a statement as it is Charlie Dent maybe looking for other career ventures.
And then at the same time, Aaron, we've got House Speaker Paul Ryan, who's retiring. What do you think Paul Ryan's role will be heading into the midterms?
You know, I think that announcing his exit early is going to diminish his role in those midterms. Usually when a speaker is on his way out, they're usually a kind of a diminished quantity. They don't really have as much of a constituency within the party. I think it's going to be more about which direction the party goes in from here, and really whether or not the party even has a speaker to elect after the election. That they have to win back the House, of course. They have to hold the House. And then we have to decide whether the party is going to go with the guy who was supposed to be the speaker last time in Kevin McCarthy, or whether they're pushed in a more conservative direction, somebody like a Steve Scalise, or even somebody who's a little bit more closely allied with the House Freedom Caucus.
Aaron Blake from the Washington Post. Aaron, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.